Well, in several states where the End Bad Governance protests took place, security agencies, including the Nigeria Police Force and Civil Defense Corps, were positioned in various protest grounds to prevent a breakdown of law and order. The commissioners of police had outlined conditions to protesters to enable a peaceful demonstration, including the organizers yielding to full disclosure on the assembly point and routes of the proposed protest. Amid the tightened security, protesters in some states, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, resisted the police tactics and overtures, leading to a high level of violence during the demonstrations. There were records of looting, vandalization of properties, shootings, and some fatalities, leading to a declaration of curfew across the affected states. Well, security analyst Chidi Omeje now joins us to assess the management of the protest before and during the demonstration by security agencies and how to improve the management of civil protests. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the program.
Thank you, Vimbai. My pleasure to be here.
All right, great. Now let's get straight into it. Just from observation, you see that there was no use of riot shields, live ammunition. In many cases, journalists picked up empty bullet shells from around areas where protests were held. There's now a discrepancy with regards to casualty numbers and death toll. Yesterday, we heard the IG of police saying that there were no deaths at the hands of any of the security agencies. Whilst civil society organizations are saying differently. Based on some of these points that I've raised, and of course others that you would be well aware of, what is your assessment of how the security agencies manage the protest? Okay,
first of all, we understand that, in crisis management, if your crisis management effort is going to be effective, you have to plan for it. You have to be proactive about it. You have to plan ahead. And good enough, those who organized, or rather who are behind these protests, give this country, give everybody enough time. So the security agencies and the government will not say they were taken unawares. They had time to plan for this. So now the fallouts we've seen, the destructions, the violence, all the sides of it, including the management of the protest by the security agencies, are all a lesson for us to learn. I think that going forward, the government and those who are directly in charge of managing situations like this must understand that you are dealing with human, situation, and most times it's not what that was intended that you see. You can see how I'm sure those who planned this protest envisioned a peaceful and well-organized protest to drive home their points. But you could see that some elements have infiltrated the protest and then give some violent dimension to it, seeing some destructive dimension to it, seeing some sovereign intervention to it, and all manner of things. So I am thinking that, this has given us a very, enough reasons to plan ahead. Our security agencies must be able to be protected, actually, as a matter of fact. I didn't get to see our policemen with shields. Now, you see, as our protests are going on, so protests in the UK is going on. And you could see the security agents in the UK well protected. I mean, they have shields, they have all manner of gadgets that protect them from, objects and stuff. I didn't see much of that from our police guys. The best you could see is, probably police wielding baton, and then, so of course, some of them wielding assault rifles, and then, of course, the tear gas and stuff. So, like I said, managing protests going forward, it has to be something that we must be deliberate about. We have to protect our security agents. We have to protect those who are peacefully protesting, because, like everybody have noted, protest is actually a constitutional right. It's only when it takes all this kind of dimension that you begin to worry. Ordinarily, that same constitution that gave the police the right to maintain law and order, gave the citizens the right to protest. So it's all about how do we balance this, how do we manage it to make sure that we get the best from the situation. I don't like the idea of demonizing protests. We can't demonize protest because it's a constitutional provision. But those who want to protest must understand that the security agencies have a job to do. They have a role to play. They cannot sit by and watch elements infiltrate a protest and destroy critical infrastructures or kill innocent people or bring some dimensions that are actually inimical to our national security interests. So once those things begin to happen, then your protest is no longer innocent. So you expect the military or the security agency or whoever is involved to, to ensure they do their job. So like I said, going forward, we have to be intentional about how we manage our protests so that Nigerians who have the right to protest must be able to protest peacefully without, becoming, part of a security concern.
Right.
That's my initial reaction. Vimbai.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Omeje. And speaking of intentionality, prior to the election, to the protest, there was a lot of information shared regarding intelligence that the protest would be hijacked. My question to you is, why do you think that this intelligence failed, and why this consistent theme where Nigerian security matters are concerned of intelligence failure, whether it's other incidents, security incidents that happen elsewhere in the country concerning other issues? Consistently, we hear intelligence failure. Why do you think intelligence failed this time around?
Well, most times when we say intelligence failure, how do we really measure it? Do you know, how do we define a successful intelligence? What you've seen could be that the intelligence, because of intelligence proactiveness, it was contained to this level. Or it actually mean intelligence failure. But what I'm trying to say is that, the intelligence community, the intelligence assets work surreptitiously. They work in a way that you and I may not know. So sometimes what we think is a failure is actually a containment, level they've done. But that's not to say that we've gotten it right. The riotous nature it took, the violence we witnessed, the idea of introducing foreign, sovereign intervention by flying flags, and then those who are calling for military takeover. These are things that actually demonize the protest. So intelligence failure, like I said, they work covertly. You and I don't know how to operate. I don't know how to operate. But I want to believe that they won't sit back and allow things to get so much awry that national security will be impaired. But at the same time, they could do better to ensure that this level of violence we witnessed, destruction witnessed, could have been nipped in the bud. These are possibilities, really, if there are actual coordination between the intelligence, assets, and then, of course, those, the physical police will see.
Right.
So like I said in my first introduction, this is a lesson learning period for everybody, including those protesting and of those managing the protests. We have to learn because in the future, you have to anticipate crisis. Crisis is part of part of society. Crisis must come, but you need to anticipate it and plan better for future.
Right. Now, in the spirit of, this being a learning curve, yesterday at the security briefing, we were advised that some of those who were protesting, especially in the north, are said to have crossed the border from Niger. They're saying that some of those Russian flags as well were imported. Now, of course, we know that Nigeria's border with Niger is notoriously porous, but we're also aware of how intertwined the people who live around this border area are with one another. How would you advise that we manage this delicate situation in light of what we know is happening in this region, what's happening in Niger and so forth? How do we manage these delicate relationships?
Yeah, the geopolitics in the Sahel region should have given our security agencies a cause for concern. It should have given them an idea that things like this should happen. Now, I do not know who is behind the foreign flag that were flown in Nigeria, but that there's a shift in Western influence within that Sahel region where you have the Niger Republic and Mali and Burkina Faso, severing links with the West, then they're having a very robust relationship with Russia. And just like you rightly said, there's, the border between Nigeria and the Niger Republic is somewhat very porous, such that there's always intermingling. So now, you see, all these dynamics are something that I'm sure that those who are managing our security must be, putting into play. But don't forget also that yesterday at the briefing they had, the one who was speaking for the DSS spokesman actually told Nigerians that they have gotten a lead about those who are behind the kids who are flying the flags. Those, of course, everybody knows that those chaps flying the flags did not just procure the flags, so people are behind them. So we are waiting. The country is waiting to know who indeed are actually behind these, this sovereign intervention, in the Nigerian protest. So it brings also to mind the issue of border, porous border that we always talked about. If you don't manage your border well, you should expect this sort of thing, especially when you are dealing in a very volatile region like the Sahel, given all that's happening across the Sahel countries, where you have, cross-border banditry and infiltration of terrorists and all manner and Islamic militants, all manner of things jumbling up in the same region. So you expect the diffusion of some of these things into our country. So it behoves on those who manage our security to make sure that our borders are much more secured, because what happened now, this particular flag-flowing incidents we've seen, it should be a cue to our security people to see that, look, we have to be careful. This is a very dangerous precedent, I have just said. We can't afford to have any foreign national intervening in our internal security dimension activities. So it calls for actual introspection within the country security architecture.
Right. Now, while that has transpired in one part of the country, it somewhat has overshadowed the original vision of these protests, which is that it was a hunger protest in essence. Now, my question to you is, in those places where we did witness peaceful protesting, even in some places where those peaceful protests were hijacked, why do you think the security forces were unable to separate protesters from hoodlums? Because should it be the case that all protests must be suspended because the security forces are unable to protect peaceful protesters from people engaging in illegal activities? What's your assessment? Why are we failing to protect peaceful protesters?
Most times it's not as easy as we're saying it. Managing such crowd is not easy. And look, you have to balance the right of the citizens to protest and the responsibility of the state agents to protect the state. So, there's a way those who are managing our protests will behave or act. Then you and I will begin to ask, well, wait a minute, are you professionals? And there's a way they will act. You ask, why? Are you negligent? So, you see, sometimes you have to balance this because it's not quite easy. I mean, the citizens, those guys who are protesting, came under the banner that they have a right to protest. Then we begin to see infiltrations, begin to see introduction of things that you never imagined. I never, in the widest imagination, expect that somebody is going to fly a Russian flag in our country. So these are dimensions that I'm sure the even security agency never anticipated. So, and this thing that have just happened now has more or less demonized, more or less toxified the whole protest. And so that if you ask me, I will ask those who are, who have planned this protest to probably re-strategize or actually call it off entirely, because already the protests have been, given a very bad name. It has been tainted by this, this sort of thing we have seen. So that you don't expect the state assets to sit back and watch when you have obvious, dangerous dimension introduced into something. So back to what you asked me. It is not always easy to manage a riotous situation when the citizens are telling you that they have a right to protest. And then, you now have a right to say, or have a responsibility to say, look, if you're going to protest, don't cross this line. So it's not easy. You have to balance it to make sure that both sides are rather satisfied with your, with your acts. So that's what I think about it.
All right. Now, what about military intervention? There was a report shared this morning from the army confirming the death of a 16-year-old boy in Zaria who was caught in the crossfire when the military were firing at some hoodlums and looters in that area yesterday. Is it time for the army to get involved? At what point do they get involved? Is it right for us to be seeing the army involved at this stage?
Well, now, at this stage, it will be difficult to say the army shouldn't get involved, especially in those areas where we see such level of volatility and such level of, the destructions and violence. And of course, we're around seeing foreign flag being flown. The military, don't forget, the actual constitutional role is to defend the country from external aggression or internal insurrection. And of course, they also have the mandate to assist, to aid the civil police when the internal security challenge overwhelms the civil populace. So, good enough, actually. I think I need to praise the military now because they owned up to that particular incident and they apologized. And of course, I read that the Chief of Army Staff had to deploy the GOC one div to go see the family of the bereaved, of the chap that was shot down, that was killed. So that's just to show that they understand that what had happened shouldn't have happened. That the military ought to, hang around to observe, except the incident have turned so riotous that is beyond the capacity of the civil police to deal with. That is where the military ought to be. But like I was saying, given the situation, given the dimensions that the whole thing have taken, that you would expect the military to be within the precinct to make sure that it doesn't go beyond the mere protest. So I don't expect to hear again that the military kill anybody except when there's actual need for such use of military deployment. So it's a pity that somebody had to lose his life. I don't know whether the chap that was killed, I don't know whether he was violent or whether he was possessing any weapon that led to that. But from what I read, the military are very remorseful about it. They've sent a delegation to go see the family. So we're waiting they say they're doing some level of investigation. We're waiting to see what happened. But, generally, the military ought not to be within that precinct except if the protesters have taken a riotous dimension that is beyond the capacity of the police to deal with. Those things have to be determined. I wasn't there in Zaria to see what happened, but I'm not telling you the ideal situation, how it's supposed to be.
All right. Now, of course, when we're looking at security, it's a whole process that one considers. So we look at how it ends, which is arrest, conviction, and so forth. Just to compare, I know it's not always healthy to compare, but if you look at the United Kingdom, I believe the Prime Minister has already said that he expects all convictions to have taken place within a period of a week. From the arrests that were made on Sunday, and that's about 400 or 500 arrests, I believe. Daily Trust reports that here in Nigeria, we have made about 900 arrests. Some of those are already facing the mobile courts in Kano and in other areas. Are you content with this pace at which you're seeing justice, the wheels of justice turning where these riots are concerned? Very briefly as we round up.
Yesterday I listened to the IG, during their briefing when they said that the magistrate had to, go to the police station to make sure that those people that were arrested, are being prosecuted immediately to make sure to assure Nigerians that they do not hold them indefinitely. I think that if that's actually what is happening, then it's commendable because we are talking about almost about 800 to 900 people. It's not easy. You can imagine even to keep them in a holding facility will be a difficult task. So I expect that they should, as a matter of fact, prosecute them, and then those who are culpable, those who are found to be part of the violence that we have heard about, will have to be prosecuted. But those who are merely protesting should be let to go because they are Nigerians and they have some level of constitutional right to protest. But it's only if you are culpable, if you have weapons are found with you, then of course you have to prosecute it. But so far, I think the police, in terms of that prosecutorial, expectations, I think if what I just said yesterday is the situation, then it's commendable. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chidi Omeje, security analyst, thank you so much for this robust conversation. I think a lot was taken away. We appreciate you for your time today.